Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into something truly iconic, maybe even life-changing, the African safari.
It definitely has that reputation, doesn't it?
It does. And our sources for this, well, we've looked at a podcast called African Safaris with Global Hunting Solutions, covering hunts, photo safaris, the whole journey. And we've also checked out their website.
Right. Lots of detail there.
Yeah, exactly. So our mission here is to sort of cut through maybe some preconceived ideas you might have. We want to pull out the really key bits of info about what makes these trips, well, accessible, surprisingly diverse, and just an unforgettable adventure.
And that's whether you're, say, a seasoned hunter or maybe just looking for a really unique family trip.
Precisely. Okay, let's get into it. Often, when you hear African safari, maybe one particular image springs to mind, probably something quite rugged.
Mm-hmm.
But one way the material we looked at immediately broadens that picture.
Yeah. What really stands out, I think, is how clearly it lays out these two distinct paths. They're equally profound, but different. Okay.
It stresses that a safari isn't just one single thing. It's more like a spectrum, really, designed to fit what you are looking for personally.
Right.
So whether that's the intensity of a hunt or maybe the quiet focus of wildlife photography, the main point is connecting with nature, but in your way.
That's a really helpful distinction. So let's break that down. For someone exploring these options, what specifics did the sources mention?
Okay, well, for those interested in hunting, the sources talk about fully guided big game safaris.
Big game.
Yeah, targeting really iconic species,
Mm.
things like, Cape buffalo, formidable animals. Then you got kudu, eland, sable, even leopard.
Wow. Okay. The big names.
Definitely.
But what if hunting isn't the main goal? Or maybe you're planning a trip with, say, the whole family.
Right. Then the focus shifts naturally to photo safaris.
Mm.
And these sound incredible. They promise, breathtaking views, really up-close encounters with wildlife.
Like what specifically? Oh, elephants, lions, giraffes, zebras. Classic African wildlife.
Mm.
And it's all led by professional guides, even professional photographers sometimes.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and what I found really compelling was this idea they called the ultimate combination.
Combining both?
Exactly. Apparently, lots of families do this. Like maybe one parent goes off on a buffalo hunt in the morning, while the rest of the family enjoys a game drive, maybe a sunset photo shoot later. It seems like everyone gets their perfect piece of the adventure.
That makes a lot of sense. Sort of tailored experiences within one trip.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got the different types of experiences covered, but what about the practical side, the nuts and bolts of actually getting there?
Ah, yes. The logistics.
Yeah, I mean, a trip like this, it feels huge. There must be specific things to consider, especially if firearms are part of the plan. What do the sources say about navigating all that?
Well, that's actually one of the really valuable things they clarified. It can seem, maybe a bit daunting. But the material suggests the travel process can be surprisingly streamlined, especially regarding firearms. They lay out some very clear routes depending on whether you're bringing your own gear or not.
Okay, let's hear about that.
Mhm.
So if you're flying from the U.S., where do people usually leave from?
Common hubs mentioned are places like Dallas-Fort Worth, DFW, Atlanta, ATL, or New York, JFK. Makes sense, major international airports.
Right. And for hunters specifically, traveling with their firearms, what are the routes?
Okay, they pointed to a few specific reliable options. One route is through Doha on Qatar Airways. They noted it's firearm friendly, you just need to give advance notice.
Got it.
Another is a direct flight from Atlanta to Johannesburg on Delta. That one was described as currently one of the easiest options for hunters with guns.
Good to know.
And Turkish Airlines, flying through Istanbul, was also highlighted. Apparently they have a solid firearm policy and it's reliable transit.
Okay, so there are clear pathways. But what if you're not bringing firearms? Maybe it's a photo safari or you plan to rent.
Ah, well then things get much more flexible. The sources basically say you can connect through almost any major international city. Think Amsterdam, Paris, London, Doha, Dubai.
Lots of options.
Yeah, loads. To reach key spots like Johannesburg, Cape Town, or even Victoria Falls. Much simpler if you're traveling light gear-wise.
Okay, and digging into the firearms part a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
They said it's doable, but needs planning. What does that actually involve?
Right. Very doable was the phrase used. But yes, planning and paperwork are key. Specifically, you need a U.S. Customs Form 4457.
4457. Okay.
Yeah, and that has to be sorted before you leave the U.S. You get it at your local CBP office, Customs and Border Protection.
And then in Africa.
You need temporary import permits for the country you're visiting. But here's the good part. The outfitter featured in the sources, they actually handle that part for you.
Oh, that's a big help.
Huge. And then there are airline rules, of course. Declare the firearms, store them in a proper hard case, check them in separately. Standard procedure, really.
Makes sense.
But they also offer a great alternative, which you mentioned, renting.
Right, the rental option.
Yeah, they said you can rent top-tier rifles and gear at most camps. So if you want to travel lighter and just skip the whole firearm transport hassle, that's a really appealing choice for a lot of people, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a layer of complexity out of it.
Yeah.
So beyond the travel stuff, there's often this this image, right, that a safari is only for the really rugged, maybe Bear Grylls type adventurer.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know the stereotype.
But the material we looked at, it paints a really different picture about, well, accessibility. What was the main takeaway there? Who can actually do this?
I think the most surprising thing wasn't just who can go, but how comfortable the experience can be. The sources directly challenge those stereotypes. They really emphasize it's accessible to all physical and skill levels.
All levels. That's quite broad.
It really is. It opens it up way beyond what you might think.
So who are we talking about then? What kinds of people are going?
Well, the examples given were really diverse. Families, even with younger kids, couples on honeymoons looking for something special,
Okay.
and even older clients. People who might need easier terrain or maybe have specific medical needs that require accommodation, they cater to that.
But it's not like they're just roughing it out in tents necessarily.
Oh, definitely not. The lodge experience described sounds, well, pretty plush, actually. Luxurious and safe was the description.
Luxurious.
You're talking private chefs, preparing meals, swimming pools, even spa treatments available at some places, and just generally world-class service.
Wow. Okay, so it's not basic camping unless you want it to be.
Exactly. It really hammers home their message. You don't need to be a hunter to go, just bring your sense of adventure. It kind of proves that adventure and comfort aren't mutually exclusive.
That's a great point. It really widens the appeal. Now, obviously the wildlife is, the main event for many people, but it sounds like a safari can also be a jumping off point for seeing more of Africa.
Oh, absolutely.
What other kinds of destinations did the sources mention that you could weave into a trip? Make it a bigger journey.
Yeah, if you look at the full potential here, the info definitely encourages extending your stay, explore other major attractions, make it a really comprehensive African experience, beyond just the game drives themselves.
Well, what sort of places are we talking about? Any specific examples?
Oh, yeah, some really iconic spots came up. Kruger National Park, for instance.
A classic.
Huge, right? One of the biggest and best-known wildlife reserves anywhere. Then there's Victoria Falls.
On the Zambia-Zimbabwe border.
That's the one. They called it a true wonder of the world. Sounds perfect for a photo safari add-on or maybe a romantic side trip.
I can imagine.
And for history and culture buffs, Zulu Land in South Africa was mentioned, noted for its rich tribal history and wild beauty.
Interesting. Further afield, too.
Definitely. Maasai Mara in Kenya, famous for the Great Migration, obviously, and offers deep cultural experiences.
Right.
And then something totally different. Cape Town, down in South Africa. The sources described it as this amazing mix of mountains, oceans, vineyards, and city life all rolled into one.
It sounds incredible. So you could really build a diverse itinerary.
Absolutely. The material really stressed that custom-tailored trips are possible. You can blend hunting, photography, sightseeing, whatever mix works for you.
Imagine that, 1 week tracking game, the next week standing at Victoria Falls, feeling the spray.
Yeah, hearing that roar, it's a whole other level of sensory experience compared to just being in a vehicle.
Totally different. It really broadens the scope of what an African trip can be.
It really does.
Okay, so we've covered the types of safaris, the logistics, the accessibility, the add-on destinations. It's a lot to consider. So what does this all mean when you're trying to actually plan this kind of major trip? What do the sources say about choosing someone to help, an outfitter, for example?
Yeah, that's a crucial piece, isn't it? Choosing the right partner. The material really emphasized this.
What makes a good one stand out?
Well, experience is obviously important. The outfitter featured Global Hunting Solutions. They mentioned having over 30 years in the business. That's substantial.
Decades, yeah.
But it wasn't just the years. The key differentiator seemed to be that they aren't just booking agents.
Meaning?
Meaning they are, and this is a direct quote from the source material, Hunters, outfitters, and conservationists who live this lifestyle.
Ah, okay. So it's more personal, more ingrained for them.
Exactly. It suggests a sort of deeper commitment to ethical operations, conservation, that kind of thing, and also to providing really comprehensive service.
Like handling all the details.
Yeah, everything from apparently private aviation options to the luxury lodging we talked about, and
Anyway.
just managing all the logistics start to finish.
And they operate in multiple countries.
Seems so.
Yeah.
South Africa, Botswana, Uganda, Namibia were mentioned, possibly more. And it seems their expertise isn't just in Africa. Their website also mentions things like international hunts in Spain or Turkey,
Wow.
and even Texas Healy hunts for hogs. So a pretty broad base of experience in adventure travel and hunting.
Right. So you're getting specialists who really understand the whole process, not just a travel agent.
That seems to be the core message, yeah. They live it.
Okay. So wrapping this up,
Yeah.
whether someone listening is dreaming of, I don't know, that Cape Buffalo trophy or maybe just an incredible family photo album from Kruger.
Or that bucket list trip to see Victoria Falls.
Right. It really feels like, based on these sources, planning that kind of adventure is genuinely within reach. It's not some impossible dream.
No, not at all. I think this deep dive really shows that an African safari isn't this single rigid thing. It's presented as highly customizable, surprisingly accessible, and potentially really life-changing.
Yeah.
It can cater to such different interests, different physical abilities.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What specific blend of adventure, maybe culture, maybe luxury, what would make this the journey of a lifetime for you personally?
That's the perfect question to end on. Food for thought for anyone considering it.